Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're zooming in on the quiet, totally unshakable legend behind rock and roll's most recognizable trio. This is all prompted by the recent passing of Frank Beard, the legendary drummer of ZZ Top, who passed away at age 77 at his ranch in Richmond, Texas. Over the next few minutes, we're going to explore the life, the rhythm, and the profound legacy of a guy whose steady hands quite literally kept the beat for a half-century of American music history. All right, let's dive right into this. To really understand the massive impact of Frank Beard, you just have to listen to how ZZ Top front Billy Gibbons perfectly captured the weight of this loss. He called Frank one of the most naturally innovative drummers and a true son of Texas. Billy emphasized that Frank's signature backbeat was the absolute key to keeping ZZ Top on top. You see, it wasn't just about playing drums. It was about providing this fundamental, driving musical force that acted as the actual heartbeat for the band. And to wrap your head around the scale of his legacy, consider this absolutely staggering number, 52. That represents 52 years playing together as a trio, Billy Gibbons, Dusty Hill, and Frank Beard, without a single lineup change. This incredible feat of endurance and brotherhood actually earned them a Guinness World Record as the longest-running active group with no changes in membership. And that streak only ended with Dusty Hill's passing in 2021.
Part 1. A Texas Beginning, the heartbeat of the boogie.
So Frank grew up in Irving, Texas, and had been playing in a bunch of regional bands, including one called American Blues, alongside a bass player named Dusty Hill. Fast forward to 1969, and Frank joined a band called the Moving Sidewalks, which was led by guitarist Billy Gibbons. It was actually Frank who suggested Billy audition Dusty Hill. Gibbons recalled that they met up at a club called the Catacombs, plugged in, and wound up playing a single song for about 3 hours straight. The classic trio was locked in immediately. By 1971, they released ZZ Top's first album, and by 1973, they achieved this massive commercial breakthrough with Tres Hombres, featuring the iconic track La Grange.
And you know, there's a story that brilliantly illustrates Frank's entire musical philosophy. It's an anecdote from Frank recalling an early gig where he played Johnny Be Good with the legendary Chuck Berry. During the famous stops in the song, Frank hit the snare to bring the band back in, and Chuck Berry turned, scowled at him, and said, "Don't do that." Frank really took that lesson to heart. He learned to keep things simple. He wasn't some flashy showman like Keith Moon. He prioritized the groove, the feel, and staying right in the pocket over his own ego. He made sure every single note hit with the right weight.
Moving on to Section 2, the famous Beard irony. The visual paradox of ZZ Top is literally one of rock's greatest ironies. Billy and Dusty became these wildly flashy frontmen, famous for their cheap sunglasses, the fuzzy spinning guitars, and of course, those massive, chest-length, iconic beards. But Frank, the quiet foundation keeping it all together, was ironically the only guy in the band actually named Beard. And yet he was completely clean-shaven or only sported a simple mustache for almost the entirety of the band's history. Get this, he didn't even grow a short beard until 2013.
The story of how this iconic image came to be is pretty hilarious. Back in 1976, management forced the band to take a hiatus after 7 years of non-stop touring. The members scattered across the globe. Frank went to Jamaica, Dusty to Mexico, and Billy to France. Billy Gibbons noted that they just got lazy and simply forgot to shave. When they reunited years later, they had accidentally cultivated this wacky, matching image. But here's the real kicker. Frank actually had a beard when they reunited, but as soon as they went to take the inner sleeve photo for their upcoming album Diguello, Frank quickly grabbed a razor and shaved his right off. But you know, that 3-year hiatus wasn't just a funny vacation. Let's look at Section 3. Brotherhood and recovery. While the band was climbing to raw superstardom in the 1970s, Frank was quietly battling some severe demons. He faced a crushing drug addiction. He candidly admitted in interviews later on that he was spending nearly all of his massive touring income on pills, cocaine, and heroin. The same and the grueling road schedule had taken a really dark toll. So that hiatus the band took, it wasn't just for rest. It was a desperate lifeline. Frank made the brave, life-saving choice to enter rehab and fight for his survival.
And the absolute crucial point here is how his bandmates reacted. Just look at this response from Dusty Hill. When someone asked Dusty what ZZ Top was going to do now that their drummer was in rehab, Dusty just shrugged and said, "Well, I'm going fishing." Billy Gibbons was later asked if he ever considered replacing Frank, and his answer was an emphatic, "No, there is no other drummer." This brilliantly illustrates that ZZ Top wasn't just a business for them, it was a true brotherhood. They literally just paused the biggest rock band in America and waited for their brother to get healthy. And the great news is, he did get healthy.
Frank successfully achieved sobriety in the 1980s and maintained it for decades. He spoke about how he just desperately wanted to reach a point where normal, simple things like watching television or just going to bed at night felt acceptable and fulfilling rather than empty. He transformed back into the steady, disciplined professional, preferring a quiet, private life centered around his family and playing golf at his top 40 ranch in Texas, entirely removed from the chaos of the rock and roll lifestyle.
Which brings us to Section 4, a half-century of groove.
Now, what's really fascinating is how Frank's technical gear evolved to meet the new demands of the 1980s. With albums like Eliminator, ZZ Top embraced synthesizers, drum machines, and a huge dance rock sound. To cut through stadium PA systems and match this massive new sound, Frank worked with his drum tech to radically update his kit. I mean, he used massive Thomas Star Classic bass drums set 10 feet apart using remote pedals. His custom toms were a staggering 28 inches deep. He incorporated electronic triggers while using smaller pace cymbals to pierce through the mix. He totally adapted to the technology, but he always kept that human Texas boogie swing perfectly intact.
And because of that irresistible swinging rhythm, his beats became entirely ingrained in pop culture. From animated hits like Happy Feet, to comedies like Evan Almighty, to the classic coming-of-age film Dazed and Confused, all the way to the action epic Armageddon. Frank's tight, groovy, and instantly recognizable playing bridged multiple generations of moviegoers and music fans alike. This all culminated in an astronomical achievement: over 50 million albums sold worldwide. The band saw 6 singles hit #1 on the Billboard Mainstream Rock chart, earned multiple Grammy nominations, and were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame by Keith Richards. Their 1983 album Eliminator alone sold over 10 million copies, giving it that super rare diamond certification. This number basically proves that Frank's philosophy, playing for the song, prioritizing the pocket, and making people want to move, resonated with the entire globe. So that leaves us with a final thought on Frank Beard's brilliant legacy. In a music industry that is so often obsessed with the flashy, the loud, and the egotistical, was this quiet, disciplined, clean-shaven drummer the true secret to rock's longest-lasting brotherhood? Can any band truly swing, survive addiction, navigate the MTV era, and keep audiences captivated for half a century without a humble, unshakable anchor keeping the beat alive in the background? Frank Beard proved that you don't need the spotlight to be legendary. You just need to keep the beat steady and let the music do the talking. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and we'll see you next time.